Welcome to Immigration Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: Joe Biden regrets calling Venezuelan accused of killing nursing student an illegal. Trump's immigration plan would revive America's dark past. Bank of Canada's interest rate hold, CIBC and TD's executive shuffles and the body shop's job cuts, must-read business and investing stories. Inside the Red Bull Civil War which threatens to tear team apart. Global population crash isn't sci-fi anymore. Joe Biden regrets calling Venezuelan accused of killing nursing student an illegal. Telegraph. U.S. President Joe Biden has expressed regret for referring to an accused murderer as an illegal immigrant. The term angered progressive Democrats, who argue it is dehumanizing, and has intensified the political row over immigration. The suspect, a Venezuelan who entered the U.S. illegally, has been charged with the murder of nursing student Laken Riley. The case was highlighted by Republicans during last week's State of the Union speech. Biden later said he should have used the term undocumented instead of illegal. Recent polls suggest Biden has a slight lead over former President Donald Trump. Trump's immigration plan would revive America's dark past. Bloomberg. Americans looking to former President Donald Trump to fix the U.S. border crisis should know of the draconian, bigoted, police state policies he would employ to, in his words, rid the nation of the vermin he says are poisoning the blood of our country. Large-scale raids with federal authorities, deputized local law enforcement and National Guard troops going door-to-door to round up undocumented migrants. Bank of Canada's interest rate hold, CIBC and TD's executive shuffles and the body shop's job cuts, must-read business and investing stories. The Globe and Mail. The Bank of Canada has decided to keep its key interest rate steady at 5% for the fifth consecutive time since July 2023. While the rate announcement did not offer any hints about when the bank will start to lower its policy rate, most analysts believe it is only a matter of time before the bank begins easing monetary policy. The central bank's next interest rate decision is set for April 10. Inside the Red Bull Civil War which threatens to tear team apart. Telegraph. The ongoing internal conflict at Red Bull Racing can be traced back to the death of Dietrich Mateschitz, the team's founder, in October 2022, according to the Telegraph. Mateschitz's death created a power vacuum, leading to infighting between team principal Christian Horner and Red Bull's motorsport advisor Helmut Marko and Jos Verstappen, father of driver Max Verstappen. Tensions began to arise between the Milton Keynes team and Red Bull's Austrian headquarters over various issues, including a potential partnership with Porsche and a title sponsorship deal for AlphaTauri. The relationship between Horner and Marko deteriorated further in 2023 after Marko made controversial comments about Sergio Perez's form, leading to a warning and public apology. The situation escalated when allegations of inappropriate behavior were made against Horner, prompting a call for his removal by the Austrian faction. However, Red Bull's majority owner Kaler Muvadhia backed Horner and demanded a full investigation. The investigation was made public, leading to media scrutiny and further allegations being published. The case against Horner was eventually dismissed, but the conflict within the team continues. Global population crash isn't sci-fi anymore. Bloomberg. The global population is expected to reach its peak within this century, with the total fertility rate, TFR, declining worldwide since the 1970s. In many countries, the TFR has dropped below the replacement rate of 2.1 children per woman, leading to a projected decline in global population from 2.3 in 2021 to 1.8 in 2100. The decline in fertility can be attributed to various factors, including the pursuit of individual goals over starting families, increased female education and employment, improved access to contraception, and the rising cost of raising children. Cultural changes and declining religiosity have also played a role in the decline of fertility rates. However, declining fertility is not without consequences and presents challenges such as low economic growth, aging populations, and shifts in global demographic balance. Immigration has been seen as a solution to falling fertility rates, with net international migration contributing more to population growth than the balance of births over deaths in high-income countries between 2000 and 2020. However, declining fertility rates are expected to continue, leading to a decline in global population that may exacerbate issues such as climate change and global conflict. The decline in population may occur rapidly rather than gradually, and it may come too late to prevent the consequences of climate change. In combative speech filled with insults, Trump vilifies Biden and migrants. The Sydney Morning Herald. Former President Donald Trump spoke at a campaign rally in Rome, Georgia, where he criticized President Joe Biden's State of the Union address and repeated his false claim that the 2020 election was stolen from him. Trump used inflammatory language to stoke fears on immigration and called the press criminals. He also mocked Biden's stutter and revived his grievances against political opponents. Trump's speech underscored that he is not likely to temper his divisive rhetoric, even as the general election approaches. The Tories must strike a pact with reform, or be obliterated. Telegraph. The UK Conservative Party is at risk of losing power to the Reform Party in the next general election, according to Stephen Pollard, editor of the Jewish Chronicle. Pollard argues that the Tories have failed to deliver on their promises and have shown incompetence and inaction, making the Reform Party an attractive alternative for disillusioned Conservative voters. He suggests that the Reform Party may not win many seats, but it could split the Conservative vote enough to allow Labour to win. Pollard warns that a Labour victory would lead to an expansion of the welfare state, increased public spending, and a dysfunctional immigration system. Biden signs spending bill to avert government shutdown, live. The Independent. President Joe Biden signed a $460 billion spending bill on Saturday, extending funding through the fall for federal programs on the environment, transportation, veterans, the Department of Justice, and more. The bill includes some cuts to federal agencies like the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives and the FBI. Congress still needs to approve a larger spending package that covers the military, healthcare, and other services later this year. The signing of the bill comes as Biden headed to Georgia for a campaign rally, where he and former President Donald Trump hosted competing events. In his State of the Union address, President Biden vowed to restore the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling that legalized abortion nationwide. The Supreme Court is set to hear a case that could dramatically limit abortion rights, and Biden said he would work to codify the right to abortion in federal law if necessary. He also criticized Republicans for pushing anti-abortion laws at the state level, saying they were an assault on women's rights. Biden's stance on abortion rights is likely to be a key issue in the 2024 election. Biden also wasted no time in laying into his predecessor, Donald Trump, during his State of the Union address. He criticized Trump for his handling of Russia, saying that Putin is on the march and warning that if Putin is not stopped in Ukraine, he will continue to sow chaos throughout Europe and beyond. Biden also called out Trump and the GOP for refusing to support Ukraine's fight against Russia. The president used his address to defend his administration's policies and to urge Congress to take up bipartisan legislation that has been blocked by Trump. Syrian refugee in fawning BBC documentary raped child 7 times. Telegraph. Omar Bedreddin, a Syrian refugee who was the subject of a fawning BBC Newsnight documentary, has been convicted of the rape of a 13-year-old girl. Bedreddin and his brother Mohammed, along with 2 others, were sentenced to a combined 38.5 years in prison for the rape of the girl. The victim said that her attackers tortured her and made her life a living nightmare. Bedreddin raped her on at least 7 occasions, and threatened to kill her or take her to another country if she failed to comply. For Sudanese refugees, Egypt is barely a refuge. Foreign policy. The ongoing conflict in Sudan has led to a surge in the number of Sudanese refugees seeking safety in Egypt. As of the end of January, around 450,000 refugees had fled to Egypt since the outbreak of war. However, these refugees face dire economic conditions, a lack of aid funding, and limited opportunities for employment and settlement in Cairo. Many civilians have been unable to flee due to financial constraints, leaving them trapped in Sudan's war-torn cities. The conflict has also disrupted the lives and careers of Sudanese people, including artists and activists who had hopes of establishing a civilian leadership and democratic governance in Sudan. The aid available for Sudanese refugees is insufficient, and many are living in overcrowded apartments with limited access to basic necessities. Egypt's existing Sudanese community has been providing support, but finding long-term solutions to integrate and support the refugees remains a challenge. The situation in Sudan continues to worsen, with millions facing food insecurity and hostilities spreading throughout the country. While some refugees express a desire to return home, many are focused on moving forward and building a better future elsewhere. Far-right former football pundit set to become Portugal's kingmaker. Telegraph. André Ventura, the leader of the far-right Chega party in Portugal, is expected to double his party's seats in the country's general elections, potentially making his party a kingmaker in parliament. Ventura has gained popularity with his focus on issues such as corruption and immigration and his controversial views on topics such as the death penalty and action against Roma people. While mainstream parties have ruled out working with Chega, Ventura's strong showing in the election could make him a powerful opposition figure. Biden hasn't just opened the border. He's secretly flying migrants in en masse. Telegraph. U.S. President Joe Biden has faced criticism for allowing 320,000 otherwise inadmissible migrants to fly into the country last year, but refusing to reveal where they landed. The revelation came in a lawsuit filed by the Center for Immigration Studies, CIS, to uncover details of Biden's abuse of humanitarian parole for inadmissible migrants. Parole grants migrants the right to live and work in the U.S. for at least 2 years. The Biden administration has paroled at least 1 million migrants, according to the CIS. Woman trying to bring family to Canada from Sudan using new pathway says requirements impossible for some. CBC. A new federal pathway meant to help families fleeing the war in Sudan and reunite in Canada offers little comfort for many Sudanese Canadians. The one-year program is open to the children, grandchildren, parents, grandparents or siblings of Canadian citizens or permanent residents. However, the requirements for sponsorship, including minimum income and/or savings, are too high for many people to afford, especially given the war and displacement in Sudan. The program has a cap of 3,250 applications, which is also seen as insufficient given the scale of the crisis in Sudan. Advocates call on Ottawa to reform rules for thousands of migrant care workers. CBC. Advocates are calling on the Canadian government to reform the rules for migrant care workers on International Women's Day. The Migrant Workers Alliance for Change has criticized the Home Child Care Provider Pilot and Home Support Worker Pilot programs, which are set to expire in June, for having high language and education requirements that prevent many workers from applying for permanent residency. The alliance is demanding that the government remove these requirements and provide a path to permanent residency for all migrant care workers. Many workers are currently living in uncertainty about their future. China's payment vow an easy but marginal win as overseas concerns remain. South China Morning Post. China's State Council has promised to improve policy support to optimize payment methods in an effort to attract foreign visitors and investors. The move is seen as a positive step, but analysts and business associations have said more needs to be done to address economic and security concerns. While top players in China's digital payment market, including Alipay, WeChat Pay and Union Pay, have vowed to improve services in accordance with the guidelines, experts have said that easier payments for foreigners will not address the main concerns that foreign investors have about China. Well, my dear viewers, it seems like we have quite the lineup of stories today. From political controversies to population declines, there's something for everyone. Let's dive right in, shall we? First up, we have President Joe Biden expressing regret for referring to an accused murderer as an illegal immigrant. The term has sparked a heated debate over immigration and the treatment of undocumented individuals. But hey, at least Biden knows how to admit when he's made a mistake. And speaking of immigration, former President Donald Trump's immigration plan is being criticized for its draconian and bigoted policies. Looks like his vermin comment isn't sitting well with everyone. Surprise, surprise. Moving on, the Bank of Canada has decided to keep its interest rate steady, but analysts believe it's only a matter of time before they start easing monetary policy. And in the world of Formula One, there's a civil war brewing at Red Bull Racing. It seems like the team's founder's death has left a power vacuum, leading to infighting and tension within the team. Talk about drama on and off the track. But let's not forget about the global population decline. It seems like people are more interested in pursuing their own goals than starting families. Can you blame them? Raising kids is expensive. But this decline does come with its own set of challenges, like aging populations and shifts in demographics. Maybe we should start encouraging more people to have babies. Or maybe we should just focus on getting along with each other instead. Just a thought. In other news, Trump is back at it with his combative speeches and insults. I guess some things never change. And it seems like the UK Conservative Party is at risk of losing power to the Reform Party. Looks like they're not delivering on their promises and people are ready for a change. Can you blame them? I mean, who doesn't want a dysfunctional immigration system, right? But hey, it's not all doom and gloom. Biden signed a spending bill to avert a government shutdown, so that's good news. And he's also vowing to protect abortion rights and take on Putin. Talk about a multitasker. And speaking of protecting, a Syrian refugee who was the subject of a fawning BBC documentary has been convicted of rape. Yikes, talk about a plot twist. And let's not forget about the struggles of Sudanese refugees in Egypt. They're facing dire economic conditions and limited opportunities for employment and settlement. It's a tough situation, but hopefully, long-term solutions can be found. And in Portugal, a far-right leader is expected to double his party's seats in the next election. Looks like controversial views are gaining traction. Oh, what a world we live in. Last but not least, Biden is facing criticism for allowing inadmissible migrants to fly into the US. I guess transparency isn't his strong suit. And in Canada, there are calls for reforming the rules for migrant care workers. They're demanding a path to permanent residency and an end to high language and education requirements. Seems like a fair ask to me. Well, there you have it, folks. Another day, another roundup of news from around the world. Remember, these are just my observations and opinions. I'd love to hear what you think. So, what are your thoughts on these stories? Let's start a discussion, shall we? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.